Hello, everyone, and welcome to At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, William Rudin, co-executive chairman of Rudin, which is one of New York City's largest privately held real estate companies. Bill, great to see you.
Great to be here, Andy. It's really the first time I've ever been interviewed for Barrons, so it's an honor for me to be here.
Well, it's an honor for us to have you here, Bill. So I want to ask you about the business. You own commercial and residential real estate in New York City. Tell us a little bit more, though.
Well, it's an exciting year, 2025, for us because we're going to be celebrating our 100th anniversary. My grandfather, Sam Rudin, and his siblings, he had 8 siblings, started the business in 1925. So it's very exciting for us. Not too many family businesses get past the second or third generation. We're being run now by my children, who are the 4th generation. My cousin Eric and I became co-executive chairman a year ago right now. And so Samantha and Michael are running the business. Eric and I have a front row seat on seeing them plan for the future and move our company forward. And so it's very exciting. As you mentioned, we own office buildings. We have nearly 13 million feet of total square footage of apartments and residential, about 2.5 million feet of residential, and the rest office, all in New York City and Manhattan, one building at the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Right. And so at first blush, when you hear the number of buildings you guys have, it doesn't sound that many. What's 32, something like that?
Yes, yeah, 33.
But each one of these buildings is like its own little city in some cases, right?
Well, as we mentioned, we started in 1925. My grandfather built an apartment building in the Bronx, and then moved into Manhattan, started buying, and then started developing after World War II. My father and uncle came into the business after World War II, and that was an exceptional time of growth, where my grandfather was a true urbanist before that, moniker ever was bandied about. He believed in the power of cities. He believed in making sure that the environment around our buildings were safe and we contributed back to the city. And so every time we built an office building in the 50s and the 60s and 70s, he would want us to build an apartment building because he wanted the workers to be able to walk to work and have that urban experience. He passed away in 75. My father and uncle took over the business. My cousin and I and my sister and my other cousin, we were all in the business then in the late 70s, 80s. And then when my dad passed away in 2001, and then my uncle passed away in 2016, my cousin and I took over the day-to-day operation of the business. And now it's handed off to what we call G4.
I want to ask you about the buildings and about cities, about New York City specifically, Bill. But let me just, one more thing about the family. How do you guys all stay on the same page? How do you avoid fighting and breaking up?
Look, like any family, we have our moments, but that's the secret sauce. We sit down, we talk, we meet on a regular basis. We have an executive committee with our professionals with us, and then sometimes we go into executive session, and it's just the 5 of us. We have our new president, and who is our CIO. We made him president, a gentleman by the name of Neil Gupta, and so we work hard and collaboratively with each other to make sure that we make the right decisions to keep our company moving forward. And sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes it's quicker, but it's that secret sauce, I think. It's communication, and our offices are all next to each other. We walk through the office, pop our heads in, say, hey, we're working on this or doing this, and we try to get the job done.
I know you talk about number of buildings and square footage. What other financials do you disclose or can you disclose in terms of the scale of the business? And what metrics do you use to benchmark success at the company?
Well, that's a great question. And that's something that, in terms of benchmarking, the new generation is really putting together that type of data and making sure we can look at what our competitors are doing, how we measure up against them, compare ourselves to ourselves really and look at the history and how we can do things better. But what I can tell you is Sam's philosophy was two basic fundamentals, or three basic fundamentals. Keep your buildings low leveraged, have proximity to public transportation, and to make sure we provide the best level of service to our customers. You mentioned your grandmother lived in one of our apartment buildings on the west side, and so we pride ourselves in our brand, and we call it the Rudin way, and to make sure that each and every one of our customers, our tenants, are being treated with utmost respect. We solve their problems and make sure that they're happy, because if they're not happy, then our buildings won't be full.
Right, so 100 years, you've had recessions, wars, but you never had anything like the 1-2 punch of COVID and remote work. And that has socked urban real estate big time, Bill. And so give us an update on that.
Well, no question. It's been a tough year. Let me just digress 1 second. My children came into the business during the great financial crisis. So they got the experience of seeing firsthand what it takes to navigate through
2008, 2009.
Yes, what it takes to get through difficult periods of time. And I think that really gave them a tremendous foundation because then again, we had a few good years, and then we got hit with COVID and remote work, and then interest rates. So we had a triple hit,
Whammy.
Triple whammy. And again, that low leverage philosophy, that relationship with our tenants, I think really helped us navigate through the difficult period of time. And so, again, it goes back to how we interact with ourselves and how we interact with our customers. We lost a lot of tenants, residential tenants during COVID, but then as soon as the vaccine started to get put in people's arms in the beginning of 2021, we went down. We were at 95% occupancy pre-COVID. We dropped immediately within March, April to the mid-80s. And then in February of 21, we started seeing people come back into the city and not go back into the office, but come back and be living in the city. And we, I would say a year later, we were back to the 90s, and today we're at 95% occupancy. But what we also do, and what we did during COVID, was allocate our resources to where we knew somewhere along the line COVID was going to end, and people would be back living and working in the city. So we spent money on lobby renovations, on amenities in apartment buildings, and made sure using our reserves that we had during the good times and spent them appropriately to make sure when the market did rebound, we would be getting first movers and people coming into our buildings, which is really critical.
And these buildings, as I said, are monsters. I mean, 345 Park Avenue has its own zip code. Blackstone's headquartered there. The NFL is there. I think you guys are there as well.
That's our headquarters. Our headquarters were originally at 415 Madison, which I'll come back to in a second. But yes, 345 is our largest building, nearly 2 million feet. And this summer, summer of 2024, we renewed Blackstone. It was the second largest deal of the year. They expanded, and they're over 1 million square feet. And the backstory is, in 1985, when Steve Schwartzman and Pete Peterson had formed Blackstone after they had been let go of Lehman Brothers, they formed Blackstone, really one of the first fully integrated asset management companies. But they weren't getting any business. They weren't getting traction yet, and they couldn't find office space. They ran into my father on 52nd and my uncle on 52nd and Park Avenue. They were all four of them were going to the Four Seasons restaurant. And my dad said, "Hey, Steve and Pete, how you guys doing?" They told them their story of woes, and they couldn't find space. And my dad tapped Steve on the shoulder and said, "Look up to the 30th and 31st floor of 345 Park Avenue. We've got 2 floors. Union Pacific had just moved out. They're fully built. You guys come and look at the space. And we're not worried about your credit. We think whatever you're going to do is going to be successful. We believe in you." And so that was a 60,000 foot deal. and they shook hands, they made the deal, and today they're a million plus square foot tenant. So that's the kind of relationship that we have with our customers and our tenants.
That's a great story. I love that. And then I saw a picture of you with Roger Goodell of the NFL. But
Yes.
all these relationships, I mean, just this one building alone. I mean, I don't know what it's like getting a zip code from the post office, but it must be really fascinating to manage these relationships.
Well, in honor of my father and uncle, 52nd Street is named Lou Rudin Way, and 51st Street is named Jack Rudin Way. It's because of what they did for our city and their commitment, particularly during the fiscal crisis of the 70s. They helped organize other businesses to prepay real estate taxes and really boosted the city and tried to get people to come back into the city. And they really believed, like their father, in the power of the urban experience. And they were right. And so now you see every borough thriving throughout the city. Even during COVID, a lot of the outer boroughs did very, very well. And now the city has positioned itself for tremendous growth. Last year, nearly 40 million square feet of leases were signed. So New York City Manhattan has a 450 million square foot office population. So that's a pretty impressive number. The last time that was achieved in 2019. So, and what we're also seeing is flight to quality. This is something I'm sure you've heard before. It's the Class A buildings like 345 Park Avenue, like our building at 3 Times Square, like One Vanderbilt, the West Side and Hudson Yards. This is where the companies want to be. And now, recently, JP Morgan announced everybody back into the pool 5 days a week. None of this 3 or 4 days a week. And same with Citadel. Same with all the financial service companies. Everybody's coming back into the office, and our population now is close to pre-pandemic levels. They're in the 80s and 90s, depending on the building. So the city is really of all the major cities, New York City has the lowest vacancy of any city, like San Francisco or LA and Boston. And so the businesses are coming back. They understand the power of being in the city. And the other interesting statistic is that 40 million square feet, majority of it was financial service, accounting, the fire sector, law firms, but few technology companies. But now we're starting to see the tech, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Meta, taking more space. And that's going to increase significantly the demand for space.
Oh, I didn't know the tech companies were actually building out. I thought they were contracting. That's a fascinating point. Maybe here and not there in California. Park Avenue, though, Bill, is back, right? I mean, and I'm curious as to why that is the case. And I know you have the Citadel building that you guys are working on as well, which is on Park Avenue as part of that. But it's kind of the Mad Men era zone of New York is coming back.
Well, it is coming back. What happened in the 2000s was there was no new construction on Park Avenue, and people were moving to Hudson Yards and other parts of the city. Then owners realized that people were moving out, and what did we need to do? We needed to compete. We needed to reinvest in our buildings, and to attract and retain and get people back into their offices, because it's really the talent that's driving companies being in New York City, our diversity of people and its connectivity. And so we realized we needed to be competitive with these newer buildings. So we put in amenities, food, wellness, outdoor space. And literally every building along Park Avenue was doing that. But the real fuel to the fire was when Jamie Dimon in 2018 announced that they were going to tear down their headquarters at 270 and build their new world headquarters, which is going to open this summer. And I walk by the building every day. I look at my office every day from 345, and it was a game changer in terms of people's mindset, in terms of the East Side and its connectivity to Grand Central. You also have Long Island Railroad now coming into Grand Central. Madison, I call it East Side Access. That was the original name of it. And that's bringing thousands of commuters into Park Avenue and Grand Central area so they don't have to go to Penn Station. And that was really also a significant game changer. And so once that started happening, there was new zoning that the city did in 2017. And that's what's driving the demand. And on top of that, it's post-COVID. People don't want to take take a train, commuter train, and then get on the subway. They want to be able to walk to their office. So that's really driving the demand. And Park Avenue is, I think, around 8% availability, the lowest probably in any central business district in the country. And so we're with Vornado, VNO, Steve Roth, and Citadel are in the zoning process, the entitlement process, to build a new headquarters, New York headquarters for Ken Griffin. He is also a partner in the project at 350 Park. We own a building behind there, so we collaborated and put our developments, our sites together. And this will be a 1,800,000 world-class office building that's very, very exciting. And I'll be able to watch that construction from my office. And so that's the type of thing that's happening in New York City. And then, Citadel realizes that to get the talent, they have to have this type of infrastructure, and the young people want to be in New York City.
As we wrap up here, Bill, I want to ask you a little bit more about your family and the commitment to New York City. You talked about that a little bit, but helping out the city when it was in dire straits, the New York City tennis, the New York Open, that whole endeavor, the New York City Marathon. Your company and family has been behind that for many, many years. Doesn't that hurt profit margins to do all this other stuff? And how do you find the time and effort and money to do all that?
Well, philanthropy is part of our core. I left that out in our other part of the conversation. It's part of our philosophy of reinvesting. We look at it as reinvesting in our cities, our hospitals, our educational institutions. My wife and I met at NYU. My dad went to NYU. Our daughter went to NYU. Our son went to NYU. So I was on the board of NYU. And other institutions, whether it's the Whitney Museum or Central Park Conservancy or the Battery Conservancy, we have buildings around all of these institutions, and you have to make sure that those institutions are thriving. And it's it's in our DNA. And and our children get it. They're on boards. My cousins get it. So it's all a part of of our philosophy. And one other point I forgot to mention is that we have a severe housing shortage in our city. And what the mayor and the governor did last year was change laws to allow conversions of obsolete office buildings. And we're starting to see that. We're involved in a project in Lower Manhattan with Larry Silverstein and Metro Lofts at 55 Broad Street. We just started renting a few months ago. We're doing very, very well. And last year, the law changed to allow conversions in Midtown. And so we have several properties that are older. They're not ready they're not really functioning as an office building anymore. So the next stage of their life is conversion. So we've got a couple of projects that we're looking at to convert, and you're going to see probably 20 to 25 million square feet of office be converted to residential. It will take some supply off, but we need housing. And most of these projects will have affordability components to them because they'll take advantage of the tax abatement. So that's another part of the exciting future of our city, and my kids are working on those projects.
Just a quick follow-up on that point about the conversion to the residential. How many units would that equate to, roughly?
I would say probably 25 or 30,000, maybe more. In the city of Yes that the mayor passed, they projected 80,000 new units to be developed, whether conversion or new construction. And about half of that is coming from the conversions. So we know of dozens of projects getting ready to go, one in Times Square. Our projects are on Midtown East. So it's going to be an important part of the city. but we need to do more. There needs more housing, affordable housing, workforce housing, middle income housing, and we need our city, state, and federal government to focus on that even more. They did a good job in 2024, but more needs to be done.
Your 100th year anniversary.
That's correct.
Bill, so much more to talk about, but I think we have to leave it there. Bill Rudin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. That 20 minutes went super fast. That's great.
This is at Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll catch you next time.